Prior to Fidel Castro taking power, Cuba's education system looked like it was on the fast track to success. President Bautista flooded the country with social benefits, and Cuba's education system was drastically improved, helping gain popular support. However, corruption began to grip the government and education fell by the wayside. After the Cuban Revolution in 1959, its new dictator Fidel Castro transformed the education system, providing access all across the country. Inner-city students were required to work in rural areas, and rural students were afforded several weeks off. As a result of catering to his students' needs, Castro and his new revamped education system experienced a 99.8% literacy rate across the country, making Cuba one of the most educated countries in the world. Despite all the good that comes with universal education in Cuba, it is still a communist country, and its students are at the mercy of learning what the government wants taught.
Currently, students in Cuba are using books published around 1992 and writing in pencil to complete exercises only to erase for another student's future use. Currently, Cuba has a monopoly on all production of educational materials from design, publishing, and distribution. Students use their weekly labor education to rebind books and repair other learning equipment and school furniture. While this does allow to keep the costs low on materials, the students suffer and are at the mercy of the innovation of their educator and 4 decades of Marxist-Leninist orthodoxy. The belief that education is a shared responsibility promotes a collective educational culture. Educators spend 80% of their time at school with students and the remainder within the students' homes. Student participation results in 480 hours of labor education each year, with tasks according to their age. Tasks range from cleaning the facilities, working in school gardens, to discussing school problems.
On April 4, 1961, the Cuban dictator created the Unión de Pioneros de Cuba, Union of Pioneers of Cuba. Almost all Cuban children have to become pioneros, and as pioneros, they have to participate in many extracurricular activities, are asked to denounce any counter-revolutionary activity that they see, and carries with them, from kindergarten until graduation from high school, a dossier that identifies them as being Integración Revolucionaria or not, and which political party they belong to. All things considered, Cuba boasts nearly a 100% literacy rate for its citizens and spends more than 13% of its GDP annually on education, ranking Cuba second in the world.
Traditionally, Mexico has failed to produce a full generation of educated youth. The current educational system in Mexico requires a minimum of 12 years of schooling, which has been divided into 3 stages: primary, secondary, and university preparation. Although this system looks good on paper, of the 98.5% of primary school graduates, only 59.7% will move on to the secondary level. Furthermore, a higher education is very difficult to obtain. Of all the applicants to private universities, only 20% will be accepted, leaving 80% to either attend a far inferior school or end their educational career. Although Mexico's educational system looks bleak, they are showing signs of promise. The Mexican government has created telesecundarias for those students who live in rural areas. The telesecundaria program teaches students through the use of instructional videos. Textbooks are provided, and each video is a minimum of 15 minutes long. The telesecundaria program stretches out over 3 years and yields more graduates than traditional secondary schools.
Dominated by working-class citizens, Mexico has historically only expected a rudimentary education, with curriculum issued from Mexico City. Problems facing the Mexican school system are overcrowding, lack of materials, and improperly trained teachers. Overcrowding in urban classes consists upward of 30 students in comparison to rural classes containing only 20. Overcrowding has created a system where students attend school in shifts. The Mexican government does not have the funds to build new schools, and the solution has been creating morning, afternoon, and evening school shifts. Materials used in Mexican classrooms are associated by a trickle-down effect, with urban classrooms outfitted more generously than its rural neighbors, leaving materials to dwindle the more rural the school city. Students must copy lessons in their personal notebooks, which the professor has written on the chalkboard or dry erase board. Computers are another battle. 150 students have to share one computer with low internet access. Computers sit in schools, but internet access is limited to schools that are able to receive and afford such access. Rural schools offer students lessons received via satellite. One problem remains. Most rural and indigenous schools lack the access to internet, televisions, and VCRs. Few indigenous communities have electricity and well-maintained roads needed to operate such a school. Teachers who are only in the classroom 50% of the time are only there for 2 to 3 hours a day.
For the Mexican student, the educational base is deductive reasoning, moving from the global towards the particular. However, the last critical step of translating from the particular to application, or how to implement, is not emphasized. Programs at all levels focus on general knowledge rather than in-depth learning, wherein the Mexican student is drilled in concepts, ideas, and credit is given for examinations, not participation or class work. With this in mind, the student is conditioned to accept a very regimented classroom and behavior, where the exceptional student soon learns to fit in. Mexico currently has roughly a 91% literacy rate and spends 5 to 6% of its GDP on education,